Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into what is arguably one of the most baffling, frustrating, and downright fascinating real-world mysteries of the entire 20th century. We are talking about a case that has stumped detectives, amateur sleuths, and even top-tier cryptographers for over 70 years. It's a story packed with dead ends, bizarre clues, and a meticulously crafted puzzle that seems almost impossible to solve. So we're going to break it all down step by step.
So how does a man just disappear in plain sight? I mean, in our modern world, with smartphones tracking our every move and massive digital footprints, vanishing is incredibly hard. But what happens when someone leaves a physical body behind, yet systematically erases every single trace of who they are? That's what we're looking at today, exploring the ultimate clash between deliberate erasure and the relentless human drive for discovery.
Okay, part 1. The body on the beach, December 1st, 1948.
To really grasp the sheer weirdness of this case, we've got to transport ourselves back to the post-war era, to a quiet stretch of sand in South Australia. It starts out as this seemingly mundane morning, right? But it quickly spirals into the completely incomprehensible. Let's walk through the timeline. It's December 1st, 1948, down in Adelaide. Just after 6 in the morning, a local council worker is strolling along Somerton Beach and spots a man lying against the seawall. The guy has his legs stretched out, ankles crossed, one arm just casually resting on the sand. The worker assumes, the guy is just sleeping off a long night. But then, a passerby points out something incredibly chilling. They'd actually seen this exact man in this exact spot the previous evening, and he hasn't moved an inch. By 8 in the morning, the police arrive, and they realize the man isn't sleeping. He is dead.
Now here is where things accelerate from a sad discovery to an absolute anomaly. The police examine the body, and literally nothing makes sense. The man is dressed impeccably for the beach. We're talking a neatly pressed suit, a white shirt, a knitted tie, and polished shoes. Yet despite the weather calling for one, he has no hat. More importantly, he has no wallet, no identification whatsoever. The coroner steps in and finds absolutely zero signs of violence. But internally, well, his spleen is unusually enlarged. His stomach shows evidence consistent with poisoning, but the tests come back totally inconclusive. They photograph his face, they blast it across the nation, and crickets. Not a single person comes forward to claim him. But guys, here's the detail that sends shivers down the spine of every investigator who has ever looked at this case. Every single clothing label on the man's neatly pressed suit and shirt had been cut away, carefully, with scissors. I mean, this wasn't an accident, and it wasn't some manufacturing defect. Someone, for some unknown reason, went to incredible, meticulous lengths to ensure that this man's identity was completely untraceable.
Which brings us to part 2, the unclaimed suitcase, a trail in the cloakroom.
So weeks go by, and the trail goes ice cold. That is until January of 1949, when investigators finally catch a break at the Adelaide Railway cloakroom. And this brilliantly illustrates the eerie duality of this whole mystery. They find an unclaimed suitcase, checked in the exact day before the body was found. Inside, it's just ordinary stuff, but with that same creepy, deliberate erasure. There's a knife, a coat, and a shirt. The police find a specific type of thread in the suitcase that perfectly matches the repair made to the dead man's trousers. Okay, so the suitcase is definitely his. But here we go again. Every single label on the clothing inside the suitcase has been carefully removed, except for one. A single label was stitched over, reading T. Keen. Was it a slip-up? Well, investigators searched everywhere, and no T. Keen was ever traced to anyone. It was just another ghost in the machine.
Moving on to part 3, a scrap of poetry, the hidden pocket.
Totally frustrated by the suitcase, the detectives go back to square one and re-examine the dead man's trousers. And deep within a fold of the fabric, they find a tiny pocket that had been literally sewn shut. Inside that pocket, they pull out a tiny, tightly rolled scrap of paper. It's torn, clearly ripped from a larger page, and printed on it, in an unfamiliar script, are just 2 incredibly mysterious words: Tamam Shud.
So what does Tamam Shud mean? Well, it's a Persian phrase, and it ominously translates to finished or ended. And this isn't just a random phrase. It specifically comes from the very last page of a rare book of 12th century poetry translated into English, known as the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. This little scrap was literally the closing words of a book about living life to the fullest, because ultimately, death is inevitable.
Right, so I want you to ask yourself the very question that kept the South Australian police up at night.
How did a torn scrap from a rare book of Persian poetry end up sewn into a secret pocket of an unidentified dead man with no labels on his clothes? Desperate for answers, the police broadcast a nationwide public appeal. They're asking anyone who knows anything about this book to please come forward. And incredibly, someone does. A local man goes to the police and says, "You know, months ago, someone tossed a copy of the Rubaiyat onto the backseat of my unlocked car parked right near Somerton Beach." He hands the book over to the detectives, and get this, they take the tiny scrap of paper found on the body, line it up with the back of the book, and the torn edges match perfectly, like a puzzle piece. It is the exact book.
Let's dive into part 4, the code and the nurse, following the pencil marks.
Finding the physical book wasn't the end of the line. In fact, it shifted this case from a bizarre local death into what felt like a high-stakes espionage thriller. Hidden right there on the cardboard backing, under specialized light, investigators noticed faint pencil marks. 5 distinct lines of capital letters, completely jumbled and entirely nonsensical, arranged exactly like a secret code. And written just beneath this impenetrable cipher, a local, unlisted telephone number.
The police immediately trace that phone number. It leads them to a young nurse living right there in the local area. For decades, her identity was fiercely protected by the authorities. But when questioned, she admits that, yes, she once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat. She tells police that during the war, she actually gifted her copy to a man she knew. His name was Alfred Boxall. The police are absolutely thrilled. The pieces are finally clicking together. They have a name. They truly believe they have finally identified the dead man on Somerton Beach.
But here is where the most promising lead hits an absolute, immovable brick wall. The police track down Alfred Boxall. And not only is he alive and well living in Sydney, but he still has the book the nurse gave him, completely intact, final page and all. So the nurse's connection to our dead man with the missing page remains totally unexplained. The phone number was in his book, sure, but the man she knew was alive. And just like that, the investigation stalls.
Which takes us to part 5, the 2022 DNA breakthrough, solving the who. For decades, the trail just goes dark. Cryptographers try and fail to break the code. Wild theories spread like wildfire. But then, we leap forward out of the analog age of the 1940s and straight into 2022. I really want you to think about that massive gap in time. For over 70 years, the Somerton Man lay in his grave completely nameless. It took 3/4 of a century for science to finally catch up to the mystery. Through a literal miracle of modern science, researchers managed to extract viable DNA not from the grave itself, but from tiny hairs embedded in a plaster bust that was made of the man's head shortly after he died. By running this DNA through vast genetic databases, they finally confirmed his identity. His name was Carl Webb. He was an electrical instrument maker from Melbourne, born in 1905. His family had simply lost track of him over the years. So, after more than 70 decades, the Somerton Man finally had his name back.
But here's the catch. While we solve the who, the why remains just as agonizingly out of reach today as it was in 1948. Okay, we know he is Carl Webb, but why on earth did an electrical instrument maker travel all the way to Adelaide? Why did he take scissors and meticulously cut every single identifying label out of his wardrobe? And most baffling of all, why did he sew a torn phrase about the end of life from a rare book of poetry into a secret pocket?
And then, there's the code. Some have called it a complex cipher. Others thought it might be the initials of an obscure poem, or maybe it's just disjointed English from a troubled mind. But the frustrating, unavoidable truth is this. Those 5 lines of faint pencil letters have never been broken. Not by the police, not by military intelligence, not even by supercomputers.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. We know his face, we know his DNA, we finally know his name is Carl Webb. But as long as those letters remain scrambled on the back of a torn book, we have to ask, what was his final message? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those questions, and I'll see you next time.